Hey revolutionaries, I'm back in the States and just about over my jet lag, I would say. It's still lingering on a little bit, coming back from Southeast Asia, but I'm excited to bring you this week's episode with Roth Emry, which I recorded while I was over in Bangkok, Thailand. And I loved this interview with Ryan, and it's great because he represents one of my early triggers of my own reinvention back in 2016 when I first visited Thailand and was away on traveling for a month. So that was the longest time I've been away on the road at that moment in time. And it kind of really changed my outlook, and Ryan was one of the first people I met, and I got to learn his story about how he ended up in Thailand, and now he's been there over 2.5 years and just recently went back to the States once he had dropped in. So it's really a great kind of mind-opening exercise to peek into his life and how he's been looking at the world lately. But before we get to that, this is episode 25 coming up, and I feel like this is a big moment in my podcasting career, and I just wanted to thank everybody who's been listening out there. So I've come up with a 25-episode listener giveaway. I brought back a statue of the reclining Buddha from Thailand, from Bangkok, from Wat Pho in Bangkok, and if you've never been there, it's an amazing place. They have a gigantic gold leaf reclining Buddha that's there. And it's huge. It's, hundreds of feet long, and it's just pretty wild to check out. I thought if there's anyone out there who is a 25-episode listener, okay, you have to be a 25-episode listener, including listening to this episode right here, I will send you this little Buddha statue as a token of appreciation and something that will remind you of the show, and you can show your friends and talk about it. Should be fun for you. And it's a little wood-carved reclining Buddha, and it's like the coolest thing ever. So to be eligible to win the Buddha, what you need to do is send me an email, jimjim@jimjimsreinventionrevolution.com. And if you're the first email that I receive that has 25-episode listener in the subject title, it has your shipping address, but most importantly has your favorite episode out of the first 25, you'll win the Buddha, and I'll ship it to you, and I'll ship worldwide. So anybody who's listening out there, doesn't matter what country you're in, if you're in the U.S. or around the world somewhere, I'll be happy to ship it to you. So just trying to have some fun, celebrate the 25 episodes, and celebrate all the people that have been listening out there as well. So it'll be a lot of fun. One more time, the 3 things you need to have is put 25 episode listener in the subject title of the email, your favorite episode to date out of the first 25, and your shipping address. And you send that again to jimjim@jimjimsreinventionrevolution. Okay, so let's get to this week's episode with Roth Emry. I'm really excited about this. We talk about all kinds of stuff, his modeling career and the leadership course he's just taken from Landmark, and his experience in Thailand to date. So it's really great, very inspiring to me. So here it is.
Welcome to Jim Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast, the show that explores reinvention in the digital age as it relates to career, creativity, and technology. Stay tuned for interviews with professionals, entrepreneurs, and creatives that have reimagined success and are making a pivot. If you'd like to listen to the entire back catalog, visit jimjimsreinventionrevolution.com for instant access. And now, here's your host, Jim Jim.
Hey everybody, hey, this is Jim Jim, and welcome to episode 25 of Jim Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast. And I'm sitting here today with Roth Emry, and we're going to be talking about leadership, modeling, and inspiration. So Ryan, welcome to the revolution.
Hey, nice to be here.
What's going on, man?
Oh, just hanging out here on a nice hot day in Bangkok, Thailand.
Well, that's right. We are in Thailand, which is amazing. We're on the 30th floor of the Aloft Hotel here on Soi 11. So people that have been to Bangkok or listening in Bangkok will know where that is. So thanks for swinging by. So I'm just been here for about a month, a little over a month, and I wanted to have you on, Ryan, because when I started coming to Thailand, it was back in 2016. You were one of the first folks I met here through my buddy Ed that lives here, and before we dig into this leadership stuff and other things that are going on, I have this burning question: is how's your modeling career going? Because when I first met you, you were like, you had signed this modeling contract or something, and I'm like, what? How do you stumble into this modeling contract? What was going on with that?
Yeah, that was sort of a new trick that I didn't know I had up my sleeve. When I first got over here to Thailand, I had met this girl over here, and she had asked me if I've ever done any modeling or acting. Mm-hmm. And I was like, no way. Haven't even come close to it. And she's like, oh, you could totally do it over here. You have the look. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah, they're like half.
Was she
Asians.
a Thai?
She was Thai.
She was a Thai person?
And she was like a casting director.
Oh, okay.
Right. So she started setting me up with these casting calls.
Really?
And I was going to these sort of reluctantly.
Now, when she identified you, maybe just tell people that are listening out there, give them like an idea of your look, essentially.
Yeah, I am half Korean, half American.
Okay.
In Thailand, I think in a lot of Asian countries, they seem to have a liking towards, the things that are less likely to be found, right?
Right.
So for me, I've got sort of a distinct look, and don't look fully Asian, but don't look fully Western either.
Right.
Somewhere in between.
Yeah.
And they seem to kind of, all of the models over here are all half.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
It's kind of like a common theme for the models here.
Just because it makes you stick out a little bit or stand out a little bit, right? They want an Asian flavor, of course, but it's sort of like you stand out, like you're not the common look.
Yeah.
Right.
Always want exactly. It's like that supply demand thing. Always want what you have less of.
Exactly.
And so, that was kind of, I guess, a bit of a surprise to me. I was going to these castings, and probably about a month and a half in, I was like, okay, this is kind of like I'm wasting my time. Nothing's happening. And then I got a call, literally, like when I had that thought, I got a call the next morning, and they said, hey, congratulations, you got the job for Nivea. And I was like, oh, man, no way. Like somebody's like pulling my chain here.
Okay.
And but sure enough, got in a commercial for Nivea. Mm-hmm. And we did the shoot. It took 12 hours for a 30-second commercial.
Okay. Yeah, 30 seconds.
And during the whole time, I was thinking, oh, man, I'm going to screw this up. Somehow. Like, they're not going to be able to air it. They're not going to be able to put it on TV.
Right.
It's going to be a waste of everyone's time. But sure enough, we fought through it. Mm-hmm. I did my best to try and get into, the scene and the role that they had me in and put together a good commercial, I think. Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah. So did you only do the one commercial, or have you been doing this kind of work since then, or?
I only did the one commercial because shortly after that, I picked up the teaching job.
Oh, okay.
That I'm doing now, and it kind of started to consume my time.
I see.
And these things usually, you need 2 or 3 days if you're going to get into a commercial, and they happen midweek.
Right.
So it's kind of hard to fit that
fit
in.
it in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have an interest, or I guess maybe obviously the cash wasn't behind it in terms of just wasn't that attractive at the moment to dig into it anymore? Yeah,
I think it's really cool, cool experience. A once in a lifetime experience.
Right.
And something that I thought would be nice to continue to pursue. If I had the time, definitely.
Yeah. Something you can always go back to, right?
I still get calls every now and then. They're like, "Hey, are you available for these dates?" And
I gotcha.
Most times I have to tell them, I'm not available then. But yeah, I mean, it was fun. It was an experience that
right.
I'm happy I did once. I'd be happy to do again.
I gotcha.
But yeah, it was cool.
Well, thanks for catching me up on that. So that was one of the things that stuck with me when I first met you again, when I started coming to Thailand again a couple of years ago, when I started my own sort of reinvention process. And your story in particular, really looking back on what I'm doing now in terms of doing the podcast and kind of changing my mindset and continuing to travel, really provided some inspiration for me to really do this. Because everything you told me, I think when I first met you, I really was like, it was unbelievable to me. Like, because the state you were in, I think you were back then really kind of raw in terms of reinventing yourself. Maybe you didn't call it that back then, but maybe looking back, you can think about it now because it's been a couple of years now. Mm. But I remember when I first met you, you hadn't been in Thailand very long. So let's just kind of fill in the backstory a little bit, and that when you moved, and you're originally from the United States. So tell people your story in terms of how you ended up in Thailand and how you ended up staying in Thailand.
Yeah, a series of improbable events.
Okay.
I chalk it up to whatever belief you want to have, but I was there in Boise, Idaho, where I was born and raised, and I was working, a decent job, working for a software startup company doing sales, And, had a good life. My family was there. At the time I was married. And things, we've been together for 7 years. Things were going, they were going well as
right.
as they could be.
Right.
But I think, there was, when you're in the area that you've spent your whole life in, there's sort of, you build up all these relationships and you build up sort of this persona and you build up, your identity, your life. Right. And especially in a place like Boise, Idaho, where not a lot changes, you sort of get locked into these things. And for me, it was kind of coming to the point in time where I was like, well, things are good, but is this really it? Is this how I'm going to spend the rest of my life? And I just kind of had a quarter-life crisis, I suppose you could say. I had the
right.
realization that, what I was doing, who I'd become, what I was doing for my career, and all of these kind of, this persona I was keeping up was really more for other people and more for society,
Okay.
And
right.
Not that I was a totally, disingenuous person.
Right.
But, I always felt this pressure to kind of keep these things going.
I see.
And, maybe wasn't totally happy with what I was doing in my life.
Interesting. Now, you went to college, right?
Yeah, went to university down in Claremont, California.
Okay.
Played football down there.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
I didn't
played
know
football
that.
at the D3 level.
Really?
Yeah.
What positions did you play?
Free safety, punt returner,
Really?
kick returner.
No kidding.
Used to be a
How
fast
did I not
guy.
know this about you? That's so cool, man.
Yeah.
See what happens when you get on the podcast?
Yeah,
I love
exactly.
It. I love it.
So yeah, I spent a couple years down there. Then I went to Southern Oregon University in Ashland, Oregon.
Okay.
Ended up tearing my ACL playing football there.
Oh, wow.
So that ended the career and
Okay.
wound back up in Boise where I graduated with a degree in psychology.
Oh, you graduated with a degree in psychology.
Yeah.
Man, that's so wild.
Yeah.
That's very
Yeah.
interesting. So you were like an athlete and a model. This is crazy to me. But you're not doing any of those things now. But that's pretty cool. And he's a very good-looking guy. So we have to put when we release the podcast, you got to check out the album cover because we'll have to put a picture.
Yeah, we'll send a link to my commercial.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, that would be
We'll link to
perfect. I love it. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah,
We'll put
there
the
you
link
go.
in the show notes. That'd be
Perfect.
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. But okay, so you're back in Idaho. You graduate. I just want to give people sort of like a background of like you're kind of doing the standard American thing. Maybe you're kind of middle class, kind of a foundational family there, and you're living in this smaller town, I guess. Relative to the bigger cities in the U.S. And you're living a good life. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Yeah, I mean, everything was maybe just too easygoing,
Yeah,
too perfect, right?
Right.
Where you kind of ask yourself like, is there, you find yourself wanting to explore more.
Mm-hmm.
I think, no matter where you're at in life, when you get in this sort of contentment or comfortability zone,
Right.
you start asking yourself, what's next? What more is out there for me? And that's kind of where I was at.
Right. You know what? That's an interesting point right there, which I've experienced a few times now. I'm a little bit older, a little bit farther into career and life. But I think there's something about psychology or human beings that when they are content, that they do start searching for something else. Is that something that you studied in psychology, or like, do you know kind of what the root of that might be, just from a human behavior standpoint of view, or?
I don't recall anything just from, textbook psychology. But yeah, it just seems to be this sort of innate thing within all human beings.
Yeah.
Just this desire to continue this curiosity.
Yeah.
To continue
right.
to explore and expand, which is, probably why as a species we've been so innovative over the course of human history. Yeah. I think it's that drive, that sort of uneasiness.
Right. Yeah, that's a great word.
In easy times.
Yeah, uneasiness. Well, maybe it does go back to something in terms of just, survival or something where it's like, hey, this is kind of programmed into us, and it's like, things are too easy. Like, the lions might be hiding around the next tree or something,
Yeah.
like something to be aware of. So, okay, so you're there, and what prompted this thing? Like, okay, you're sort of content, and it's like you get this maybe uneasy feeling, like maybe I should be doing something else or exploring and wanting to learn more. But is there some like pivotal event that happens where it's like, you know what, I gotta get out of town for a minute or whatever?
Right. Yeah. I think for me, I was actually at a music festival in Boise, Idaho, and I was having a nice time with my friends and my wife. And one night we're out late. We're having a good time. We're partying. And, that night I sort of had this like existential sort of an experience where all of these things that I just kind of recapped about the way that I was feeling kind of came out, like unlocked in my subconscious.
Oh, wow.
And sort of
okay.
came just like bursting out, right?
Whoa, yeah.
And so, all of these things hit me at once, and I was just realized that, gosh, I'm really not where I want to be. I'm not where I want to be. So immediately I actually quit my job the next week.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did. Because I knew that,
Oh, I didn't know that part either. Cool, man.
Yeah, I quit my job the next week. I'm always been a very outgoing, personable person. But I think for me, when it came down to utilizing that for sales, there was this conflict in between.
Oh, really? So do you feel like you're like a really natural salesperson, or there was some conflict in terms of like you weren't aligned with the product you were selling, or the techniques you had to use or something?
Yeah, I think, I had built up some techniques of sort of steering conversations, using kind of my abilities to speak with people and interact with people, and sort of transforming them in ways that I didn't really want to, like more driven towards end results, more driven towards profits and making sales, as opposed to just quality and relationships.
Gotcha.
Which is where my passion's always been.
Right.
So it was kind of like robbing me of that, almost kind of like, sucking the life out of me a bit. Yeah.
Right. I gotcha. Cool. Well, it's good to be like self-aware and understand that about yourself, and not like just whatever, anesthetize yourself in other ways. You realize like, wow, okay, I got to get myself out of this situation. It's not good for my soul or whatever.
Right. And I think, that's an ever more challenging thing to be conscious of in the day and age that we live in, with so many distractions.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
You can spend time and escape all of what's going on inside of you by digging into, virtual worlds that we have around us, whether it's social media or
so
whether
easy
it's,
these days.
Yeah, TV series or whatever it is that you want to kind of use as an escape mechanism.
Right.
Those things are so readily available. I think it's a lot more. You have to be a really disciplined, or just totally fed up with what's going on to get to the point where you take a look at yourself and just really have those realizations, have that insight.
I see.
I think a lot of people are successful when they keep it like a main practice of their life.
Right.
Because if you don't,
then
you don't use it, then you lose it.
Oh, right. Well, that's well said, for sure. Okay, so you come to this realization and you quit your job. How does this go over with the wife or your friends or your parents, or like Ryan, what's going on, man? I
would say the number one word that everyone was using at the time was, we are concerned with what's going on.
Oh,
and I'm trying to sit here.
They're like whispering at the dinner table. Oh, we're really concerned about him.
Right. And I'm trying to sort of express to everyone that, hey, this is the biggest realization I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
I'm more certain about this than I've ever been about anything.
Right.
And everyone's sitting over here being very concerned. This is kind of a different sort of side than what they're used to.
Right.
Same Ryan, sort of at a crossroads in my life.
Sure.
And so it caused a lot of turmoil in all of my relationships. And from there, unfortunately, my wife and our relationship started to deteriorate a bit. We kind of started to veer off in different directions. So to kind of bring it home, how I ended up in Thailand was that my wife and I, it was our 3rd wedding anniversary, and we're eating at a Thai restaurant.
Okay.
In Boise, Idaho.
Wow.
It was actually the same restaurant that we had. We just went to the courthouse to get married, so we kept it kind of a secret. We brought my parents to this restaurant to tell them that we had gotten married. In fact. So
really.
This restaurant was really has a lot of kind of personal meaning.
Okay.
Personal importance. To me. And things weren't good, but they were amicable enough where we could go and have a dinner together, and sort of. Kind of try to talk about what was going on. And at that time, I was like, we've always wanted to travel. We've got replaceable jobs. We've got a little bit of money saved up. Let's go travel. Let's go travel together. Let's try and rekindle this relationship by taking it on the road and having like a real memorable experience together. Not just the daily kind of stuff.
Right.
And I was like, let's go to Thailand. On a whim. And
is that where the idea of going to Thailand
came from? That's where it came from.
Really?
Yeah.
So you didn't have any other connection to Thailand
otherwise?
I
knew nothing about Thailand.
Wow, that's amazing.
Absolutely nothing.
Okay.
Right? And at that time, she had just kind of started to establish herself. And, I think for her, the path that she was going, she wanted to really settle down in Boise. She wanted to get a home. She wanted to kind of make a family. And, for me, I still had a lot of exploration left in me, obviously.
Right.
And as we were leaving the restaurant, I got we were walking out of the door, and I got kind of a weird feeling. I've been in this restaurant many times.
Mm-hmm.
And when I turned around to look back, there was this rack of magazines, and it said, "Take one free." And the magazines were Travel Thailand. So for me, it was like, okay, this is a sign from something.
Somebody's talking to me.
That I'm going to Thailand. So
I
spoke with my wife about it, and she gave me her blessing to go.
Okay.
She said, she's a very understanding person, very down-to-earth person. And she said, if this is something that you have to do right now in your life, I support it.
Right. Wow. That's pretty amazing of her to even think that way, right?
I mean, we're still good friends.
Yeah.
And, where she's at in her life and where I'm at in my life now, it makes sense. We're both right where we want to be.
Right. Oh, that's good.
So it's unfortunate that things, went the way they did, but I think you can kind of always see the silver lining and where those, unfortunate events led you to.
Right.
And maybe what seems, sad or unfortunate at the time actually ends up working out to be, something better off for you in the future.
Right. Well, trying to control a situation or bring someone, down or whatever, that never works out in the end either.
Yeah.
So it's like, because she sees like, oh, this is something he needs to do. So that's cool of her,
Yeah, it was really understanding and very loving and open for her. And I just knew that if I was going to stay there anyways, that, I would be there physically.
Right.
But I just wouldn't be there. And quite honestly, I didn't feel like I could just even be sane in Boise anymore. Like I really had to get out. So after I got her blessing, I'd already quit my job. I looked at tickets to Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
I sold a couple of the vehicles that we had to get some extra cash.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, cashed out my 401k.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So you're not like independently wealthy at this point. You're
No,
just
not
like,
at all.
You know what? I got some cash.
I had like a one opportunity.
Okay.
Like this is the opportunity. If anybody gets an opportunity to go somewhere, and just go explore without any sort of destination in mind, without any sort of end goal, this is it.
Okay.
Let's go see what I'm made of. Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
Let's go find out who I really am.
Right. Great.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
So I bought a one-way ticket, packed a backpack. Packed stuff up, and I landed.
So you did buy a one-way ticket.
Bought a one-way ticket.
I was going to ask you this question because it was kind of blew my mind when I met you. I remember this phrase, and I know when I got back from my first trip in 2016, I know I told like everybody, all my friends, like they were asking me, "How was your trip?" Whatever, and I was telling them all the people I met and different things, experiences I had, and I would tell them your story about Ryan, who I met. And I remember this phrase in talking to you, and I said, he's like, "Oh, you were only going to come over here for a couple of weeks," was your initial thought, I think it was. But I'll let you pick up the story here in a second. But I remember your phrase telling me, like, well, how long have you been here, whatever? And you said, "Oh, I'm 8 months in." You had been here for 8 months. I'll never forget that because it was like a turn of a phrase that it was confusing to me. I'm like, you're 8 months in. It's not like you were like, "Oh, I've been living here 8 months," or, "I've been living here this long," or whatever. It was you're 8 months in, meaning like this really wasn't planned, and I'm going on my 8th month. Like I remember that, like
very
what?
perceptive.
Like he's 8 months in, meaning like he just dropped in, and who knows what's going to happen next.
That's pretty much the way it went down. You got it.
So I'm sorry, sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to share that with people because that really stuck in my mind and became one of my inspirations for changing my own life in a way and doing the podcast and such. So let's go back to, all right, so you decide to buy this ticket. It's a one-way ticket, but what were you thinking? Like, you're thinking like, oh, I'm going to go travel for a month, maybe a couple weeks at least, and find myself.
Yeah, at that point in time, I was at such a disconnect with, where my life had been and this, identity that I created that I was just kind of like, whatever comes my way, comes my way.
Right.
And, wherever I find myself, whatever circumstances or situations I find myself in, I'm well equipped to handle those. Yeah. And I'll deal with it. And at the end of the day, I mean, what do you got to lose anyways, I mean, life is life. Right. It's all temporary. And, for me, it was about the exploration of it. That to me was far greater. The value of that and going and seeing a new part of the world, finding a new part of myself, meeting new people, having a new experience, totally outweighed any sort of concerns, that myself or other people were having about it. And I knew that,
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is for you? Because not everybody feels that way, I think, or they don't feel that way at, the early age where you kind of had this idea about it. A lot of people get really tracked into going to get a college degree and going to grad school and getting this corporate job, or, being a doctor or a lawyer. And, and it's like, all of a sudden you're 35 before you come up for a breath of air to even think about anything different in life, or to decide even what life is about. It's like you really, you have this revelation or epiphany that's like, oh, wait a second, this could be so much more valuable than spending time in this, corporate job or whatever, or in Boise in your hometown or whatever it might be. Where do you think it came from?
Well, I think just, multiple outside kind of influences or just ideas about what's going on in the world.
I see.
Number one, how fast things are changing.
Oh,
and I think that for my generation and for the generations below me, this sort of idea of certainty and stability is kind of deteriorating a bit.
Right.
Because you never know what's around the corner.
Right.
I mean, globally, things are changing at such a rapid pace that stability, that sense of stability and certainty that, these things are going to be there for you. You can have a nice job, have a good income, you can retire and have a good life after that. I think those things are a little bit further away, less available to the generations today than they were for previous generations.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that, and we see it every day just playing out in the reality of just how the different business models are changing, how the technologies are affecting us and connectedness. And that's a good insight, or a good just sort of contemporary reality for, people that are, in their, say, mid 20s to, 35ish, maybe up into 40, where it's like, I'm a little bit older than that. I think I was still kind of, had the 20th century understanding when I came out of school, for example, of, I'm going to get a corporate job and work in that industry, and I'll have a pension and all this kind of stuff. But that started changing actually pretty quickly when I started working, in terms of like pensions going away and that kind of stuff. Definitely. But now things are changing much more rapidly. And I think it's just a good insight to feel that, hey, you know what? It's actually maybe more beneficial or more fruitful even to discover and explore the world in a different way now than how people, sort of felt they needed to previously, I guess,
Yeah, and I thought for me, there's no guarantees in life.
Yeah.
So who's to say that, number one, when I get to retirement age, that it's going to be a possibility.
Right.
Number two, is my retirement plan going to even exist?
Right.
Exactly, what's going to happen financially?
Right.
Probably a lot in between now and then.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my life. The only thing that I'll take with me, if I take anything with me, when it's all said and done, is my experience.
Right.
And to me, that's priceless.
Right.
Can't take it with you.
Right.
As far as materials and that stability, any sense of stability, I think, as well, is a little bit, kind of a false sense of stability.
Right.
Because in the world we live in, it doesn't exist.
That's right.
Yeah. It's sort of,
it's just the story that we tell
ourselves, right?
Yes.
That's going to be there to kind of comfort ourselves at night. Right?
That's right.
But I think the closer you can get with the realities of it, the more empowered you can be to start taking steps in your life to do things that you've always wanted to do.
That's right.
Or to live the life that you want to live, be who you want to be. Mm-hmm. And have nothing that holds you back. Because whatever will hold you back is just going to be whatever you're telling yourself.
Right.
At the end of the day.
Right.
That's the only true boundaries. I mean, there are limitations, but really the main limitations that will ever hold you back from anything are the ones that exist in your own mind.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Well, that's well said. And one of the big reasons why I wanted to have you on the podcast, because your mindset, just the more I get to know you and the more I talk to you, is it's really refreshing and stimulating to me. And it's part of the message I want to get across with the podcast. Of it really is all about mindset, in terms of if you feel you need to to reinvent yourself or want to, live a different type of life, and the technologies and the information that are at our fingertips now, just really is there to enable it now these days,
Yeah.
So it's so interesting. So let's go back to, you drop into Bangkok. What was your first impression when you got here? Because like you said, you didn't know a whole lot about Asia, and maybe you have some thoughts about it because your family history there. But what did you think, and why have you stayed so long?
It was kind of a funny story how I got to Bangkok, actually.
Okay.
So I landed in Phuket. And
Okay.
I traveled my way up north through Thailand.
Okay.
I spent a month.
So we should say
Yeah.
Phuket is in Thailand, southern
right,
Thailand,
yep,
right?
Yep. Phuket's
Okay.
an island in the south of Thailand.
Okay.
And the only game plan I had was start south and go as far north as you can.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
So then I ended up sort of in the middle kind of Gulf area of Thailand on an island called Ko Samui.
Okay.
And I spent a month there and got quite comfortable. And I made friends with some of the locals there, and one of them asked if I wanted to go with them to stay at the Buddhist temple for some meditation.
Oh, interesting.
So, for me, I'd had sort of an interest in Buddhism,
Okay.
an interest in meditation, and I thought, it's all about the experience. Why not?
Right.
Let's go check it out. What happened there during the 4 days that I was there, it's kind of like that isolation gave me time to have things settle into where I was like, where am I? What am I doing?
Right.
And I actually had a bit of an anxiety attack.
Oh, interesting.
I would actually say probably the most intense anxiety attack I've had in my life up to this point.
Okay.
To where it was like, if I'm not back in Boise, like tomorrow,
Yeah.
I don't know what I'll do,
Oh,
like I'm gonna like
interesting.
lose
That's
it, right?
so interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, because you're thinking like that's your identity still kind of at this point, right?
At that point in time, it's like, holy smokes, like,
Yeah, right.
Really, what am I doing? Maybe this is a little
You
crazy.
really get weirded out, like,
maybe this
the
is a
hell
little
am I
crazy.
doing?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe I am a little like off my rocker a bit for doing this.
Right.
So at that moment, after 4 days at the temple, I ended up booking a flight from Ko Samui to Bangkok back to Boise.
Okay.
And my plan was to try and go back and get the life back that I left behind.
I see. And at this point, you've been gone how long now?
I'd been gone for a couple months.
Okay.
2 to 3 months.
Gotcha. So
and hit that mark.
you hit that wall. You're starting to
Yep.
hit this wall of
Yep.
like, okay, I've been gone, but you know what? I got to get back.
Yeah. I think at first having no idea for what you were going to be doing the next day, where you were going to be tomorrow was kind of liberating.
Right.
And then after a while,
And then reality starts
it
to
starts
sink
to
in.
become your kind of your worst enemy.
Right.
From your best friend to your worst enemy, and it
Interesting.
starts to kind of stress you out a bit and create some anxiety. So I had called my wife at the time. We were just kind of getting ready to file papers for divorce, actually.
Oh, okay.
Because we had the conversation that, hey, this looks like we're obviously going in different directions.
Right.
It's probably best that we legally,
Right.
finalize this and just move forward. And we're like, yeah. At the time, I was going to just go back and try to have a conversation with her, sit down with her, and try to kind of, regain what we had left. And she was not in Boise at that time, kind of coincidentally.
Interesting. Okay.
Right. So I thought, okay, well, I'm over here on this side of the world. Might as well spend a week in Bangkok.
Okay.
Right. So I landed in Bangkok. I canceled my flight to Boise.
Oh, you did?
I
Okay.
canceled my flight to Boise. So
You
I
weren't
landed
sure what was going to happen.
Yeah. At that point in time, I was like, I'll stay here a week or two.
Okay.
Landed in Bangkok, and at that moment, I was a wreck.
Right.
Like
Right.
physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, whatever you want to say. I was disheveled.
Right.
And when I got onto basically the train that takes you from the airport into the middle of the city, the heart of the city in Bangkok, very strange. As I got every bit closer to the center and the heart of Bangkok, I just started to really feel the energy of the city.
Oh,
I mean,
tons
I
of
think
energy here.
if you come to Bangkok, or if you've ever been here, you could definitely in some way connect with the fact that this city is very vibrant.
It is.
Very strong energy.
Yep.
And in a way that as I got closer, I was kind of like lifting me up a bit.
And
I got to start thinking that, wow, I kind of like this. Like, this is pretty intoxicating.
Right.
You know, and by the time I got into the heart of the city, I was pretty much like fully recharged.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Fully recharged, and you know, ready to explore this place that I'd heard mixed opinions about, mixed things about.
Yeah, that's interesting, because this is when I first came to Thailand, I came to Bangkok, so it was like my only experience of Thailand for a while. But that's interesting, dropping into Phuket, however you say that.
Yeah.
Which is like a little more mellow, a little more touristy, a little bit, and so you probably have these different impressions, or people telling you different things about what to expect. So that's very curious of like what your actual reaction was like when you drop in and you're like, wow, this place is wild, right?
Yeah, and for me, you know, spending most of my life in a small town, I think the energy and excitement and stimulation of what was going on around me was just really exciting. You know, so I was like, oh, okay, like, this is cool. I want to check this out.
Okay,
yeah.
Right.
From there, you know, that's where I'd met my friend T, who I play music with.
Okay.
Who you play music with as well.
Right. Yeah, we'll have to talk about that here in a second.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But another, you know, improbability. My very first night in Bangkok, I had one connection in Bangkok. It was a Thai guy who had happened to go to university at Boise State University.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And while he was there in Boise in like the 70s, he made good friends with the parents of one of my childhood friends.
Oh, wow. What a connection.
So they said,
world.
You got to get, you know, connected with this guy. He picked me up from the railway station, and he was like, oh, tonight go hang out with my son and his friends. One of his friends is playing music at the bar.
Okay.
And you can meet my son. He's about your age. And, you know, when I met these guys, they were pretty international kids. I was not expecting, you know, Thai kids to be so like my friends from back home.
Right.
You know, and I hadn't met people like this in Thailand up until this point.
I gotcha.
They'd all been pretty Thai.
Yeah, right.
You know,
like with like strong accents, they don't understand a lot of English.
Naturally so, right?
Yeah, naturally, they're Thai.
So, and, you know, I'm sitting there, I get to this bar, and I'm sitting there, and this guy's playing, you know, like Elvis Presley and Johnny Cash and the Beatles, and I'm scratching my head, and I'm drinking
100% Thai.
100% Thai.
Right.
And he's, you know, playing the acoustic guitar, playing, you know, with an American accent stronger than mine or yours.
That's right. Yeah. Right.
And
he has like zero Thai accent, which is amazing to me.
And the personality to fit
an
on
American
top
personality.
of it. I mean, I constantly say he's more American than I am.
Right.
And I'm sitting there drinking a Deschutes fresh squeezed IPA, which Deschutes Brewery 6 hours from Boise, Idaho.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, I'm right at home.
Right.
I'm right at home. I'm, you know, with like, feels like I'm sitting with some of my buddies back home, just hanging out. And so that's how I got connected there. And, you know, T and I have had a relationship since that point, and we've been playing music together for a couple years now.
Right.
And so, yeah, just another sort of improbability, you know, just what are the chances?
Right. What are the chances?
What are the chances?
That's so interesting. So let me ask you a question, because how long ago was that when you met T? And because when I came in 2016, I remember it was late January, maybe early February 2016, I came, and so, you know, Ryan plays guitar and sings, and I play saxophone, which if you're listening to the podcast, you would know that. And I love connecting, you know, with musicians, of course. And so it's, you know, Ryan's like all these things to me. He's an inspirational, interesting guy, and he plays music. And the reason was why I met him in the first place was because he was playing music with this other guy, T, who's, you know, 100% Thai guy. He went to this international high school here in Thailand, so he's, you know, very kind of Americanized. But it was one of your early gigs. Was it one of your first gigs, I think?
Yeah.
Is that right? Or
Definitely.
Correct me on that. So.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely right. Got into Bangkok around July 2015.
Okay.
So it would have been synced up about the time you came in 2016, about 8 months.
Yes.
7-8 months after.
That's right.
And for the first, after I heard T play, I was like, hey man, we should jam sometime.
Okay.
You know, at this time I had no idea that I'd be staying in Bangkok. So I just thought, just for fun,
right,
let's get together and we play like the same exact style of music.
Yeah.
And his first response, no thanks, I'm good.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting. Okay.
I've got a band. I'm
Ouch.
really loyal to them. So he's sitting there, and I'm still hitting him up. 3 months go by. I'm hitting him up. And finally one night he says, hey, I'm kind of bored. You can come play like a couple songs with me.
Okay.
And the first song we play is That Boy by the Beatles.
Okay.
And, we never rehearsed, never played together or anything. And after the first song, he looks at me with like wide eyes and he says, are you kidding me? like wow, like that was so
that was cool, right?
In sync. And I was like, dude, I've been telling you for 3 months that we could play music together, man.
Right. You could feel the vibe already.
So about the time that you saw us, it had been just in our infancy as a band.
Right. Okay.
As a duo at the time.
Yes. Yeah, there was no band at the time.
No
That's
band
right.
at the
It was
time.
just a duo. Right?
Yeah. Just a dynamic duo.
Yeah. So I dropped in. This is how funny or crazy Bangkok can be, I guess, or Thailand.
Definitely.
I have a friend who's been here for many years, which I'm actually going to try to get Ed on the podcast before I leave.
Great.
So hopefully this week, by the time this episode comes out, there'll be another one with our friend Ed on there, who's just going to be the co-host, I just learned, of the Bangkok podcast. So we'll talk about that on the next one. So if you're listening to this one, tune into the next one. But anyways, so I came here to visit Ed and dropped in, and Ed was, I think T was one of Ed's students. He's a professor here in Thailand. And that's how the connection was. And Ed likes music, so he was kind of helping you guys out and likes hanging out with you guys and drinking, having fun at the bars and such.
Yeah.
So he hooked me up. He's like, hey, man, when you drop in town, bring your horn. You got to get connected to these guys. You got to sit in with them and jam, right? And I'm just like, yeah, okay, well, we'll see what happens, And I didn't know who you guys were or whatever. And so that was like, I think my second day or third day in Thailand. He's like, we went to this place called The Alchemist, which doesn't exist anymore. And you guys were playing there. And I sat in, and it was great fun. It was a lot of fun. You guys played the soulful music, so the saxophone fits in with it. So
yeah.
That was great. That was, one of the great, early memories of just starting to come to Thailand.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely. For me too.
Yeah.
For us too.
For sure. So we're still jamming. We got to jam this past week, and I'll probably sit in with these guys again on Wednesday.
Yeah.
I don't know when this episode will be released, but what's the place we're playing now called? The Soul Bar?
Soul Bar.
Yeah. So it's a great fit for this band that's together now, which is called
Ample Soul.
Ample Soul. So it's a quartet now.
Yeah. Ample Soul at Soul Bar.
Yeah, with bass and drums. So with Boom on drums and Kevin on bass. Is that
Yep.
okay? Just make sure we don't leave those guys out.
Yeah, you got it, man.
Anyways, so anyways, Ryan is having fun playing music here too, which is a great. I wanted to mention that because it's a great way to connect with people, and it's just when you're dropping in or trying to meet new people or reinvent yourself, etc. That's something that's always worked for me in terms of I've moved around a little bit, or when I go to a new city, if I can bring my horn and find a jam night or just sit in with a band, all of a sudden you've got 3 or 4 other great friends, like close connections immediately just through music, which is nice,
Yeah, it's something that I think when I really get present to it, I can really be grateful that I have developed this ability to play music and to play music with other people, play music for other people. When you kind of play for a while, it sort of gets like everything else to where you kind of just take it for granted. You kind of, it's going by you. I mean, even when we play shows at this time, sometimes it's like I'm taking it for granted. The true opportunity, that
Right.
we have on our hands, the true opportunity that music has allowed for me, and how amazing it really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a meditation. It's a therapy. It's a way to meet people and entertain. I mean, it's just, for me, it's been all good stuff,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one important thing to touch upon there is that, no matter what it is that you're doing in your life, it's very easy to sort of become desensitized to it and sort of just see it as just another part of your life.
Right.
And to kind of lose that luster for it. So, it's been good for me to really try to keep present to that.
Right.
And really be grateful, whether it's music, whether it's, whatever it is that you might get up to in your life, just really just being with it and really being, really realizing what kind of a role that's playing in your life.
Right. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, speaking about being present, let's fast forward a little bit up to the present.
Absolutely.
And talk about, so you've you've stayed in Bangkok now for this last couple of years you've been here.
Yeah.
And when you left on your trip, I remember, I think I seeing was it last year? That when you had left, you never had come back to the United States for almost 2 years.
2.5 years.
2.5 years, right? Because I saw you on we're Facebook friends now, so
yeah.
You see, you kind of like creep on everybody of what their lives, what's happening in their lives. And I saw that you came back to the U.S. just briefly, maybe a few months ago.
Yeah,
right?
in October.
Okay.
2017.
But that was the first time you've been back in 2.5 years.
First time.
That's amazing, really. when I think about it in terms of just getting out there and thinking differently and reinventing yourself. But in the meantime, you've been able to pick up this job as a teacher.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as part of the being a teacher, did they send you back to this leadership course? I wanted to, transition and talk about the leadership course, because that's been helping you, I think, continue to develop your ability to remain present and bring people into the present themselves. That's part of the leadership, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It was not anything that was involved with the school.
Okay.
It was just something that I decided to pursue kind of on my own.
Oh, I see. I thought maybe they just encouraged you to go back and for your training and such.
Actually, it was a girl that I was dating at the time.
Okay.
That had kind of got me involved in this program. Pretty well-known program.
Okay,
it's actually based in the United States.
Okay.
A lot of people call it a lot of different things.
All right. What's the name of it?
The corporation is Landmark. Landmark Worldwide.
Okay.
And there's a lot of rumblings about it.
Okay.
But we can kind of this is not gonna be a landmark focusing, but just talk about what I discovered. And I think no matter what kind of a self-discovery, self-growth, personal growth, leadership kind of program you end up finding yourself in, for the most part, human beings, we're all working with the same hardware.
Yeah.
We all kind of have the same biological makeup. And so as far as the way that human beings, operate, living in the world that we live in, and living in the reality of being a human being, the way that we perceive things, the way that we operate, it's the same.
Sure.
It's the same. And so, there are plenty of books out there. There are plenty of programs out there that touch upon, I think, a lot of the fundamentals of what it means to be a human being.
Right.
And no matter where you go to discover it, it gave me a lot from that background.
I see.
Yeah.
So what was the nature of it? Like, how long was it? Was there a particular focus to it? Like, how much did it cost? Just for people that are interested in thinking, like, I never heard of any kind of program like this.
Right.
What would I be right for it? Can anybody do it? Do you have to be qualified or something?
Anybody can go through it.
Okay.
It's a word of mouth thing. They don't do any sort of advertisements. So
okay, it's on the down low a little bit.
That makes people kind of feel like uneasy. But
okay.
But really, the purpose of that is that when the way that the program works, it's all about self-discovery and exploring yourself, exploring your past and your relationships.
Okay.
And it was a girl that I was dating at the time that introduced me to it. She had gotten a call from somebody that she dated 10 years back and said, hey, you have to go do this thing.
Oh, really?
It's going to transform your life, right?
Okay.
And she's a very skeptical person and a very stubborn person. So the fact that she went alone on was pretty impressive, right?
Right.
And at first I went there and they had this kind of, it was basically like the graduation night for the class that had gone on that weekend.
Okay.
The courses happen over the weekend.
Okay.
First couple of courses. The leadership course is a little bit longer thing.
Okay.
But the first couple of courses, they just happen in a weekend time.
I see.
And, at first I was like, nah, I'm not doing this. Like, no way. And then I went with her again after she'd taken the second course. And the guy that was speaking that night, he's been doing this for 33 years. And I just thought, man, he's been helping people solve their problems or get insight into their lives for 33 years. Mm-hmm. If I can get just a speck of what he's doing, the technique or whatever, the psychology or the philosophy behind it, that's going to be worth it.
Okay.
So that's kind of why I went. And also I went because I knew that as a teacher now, I got a great responsibility on my hands.
Sure.
To, develop the lives of other human beings. And I don't really always know if I'm, guiding them in the right direction.
Right.
I think I'm doing the best I can. I'm trying to do the best I can.
Sure.
But I'm not always certain that I made the best decisions. Many a days I go home and say, was that the right thing to do? Was that the right decision? I'm not sure.
Sure.
So if I can get some clarity on how to really develop other people's lives, that's going to be priceless for me.
Yeah.
And that's really, what I've taken away from it. Primarily I've learned a lot about, myself and why I see things the way that I see them.
Mm-hmm.
I learned a lot about why other people, why we develop these lenses of perspective.
Right.
For seeing things, for seeing the world, seeing ourselves and seeing others. And, how to work beyond those things.
I see.
And how to really, challenge yourself to step outside of this perspective that you've built up, to really, explore the real fact that every day there's any possibility that lies for you.
Right.
Right in front of you.
Right.
We are human beings, meaning that in any given moment in time we can be
right.
just how we want to be.
Right.
Regardless of the past. And don't have to be, concerned about the future.
Right.
We're at any moment in time. That's probably the true greatest, beauty and free will that human beings have.
Right.
Is that at any point in time we can, make those choices for who we want to be, how we want to be.
Mm-hmm. Staying in the now.
Staying in the now. Yeah. Like I said, there's all kinds of stuff on this, and I think
mm-hmm.
the thing that Landmark did for me was it connected it from conceptuality to practicality.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these things, philosophical thinkers, spiritual thinkers, whatever, life thinkers, it's all living up in conceptuality. And for me, it was like really nice to explore within my mind. But when you get out in the real world, you're like, well, how the heck is this going to work out here?
Right.
How do I meditate in a city of 15 million people? Right.
Right.
It's not a dark room with candles lit and all this nice,
right.
relaxed music.
Right.
So taking just conceptuality and putting it into practicality so I could actually see, how to use these ideas to impact my life and impact the lives of others around me.
Yeah, I think the experience part is really important. So yeah, you can read all you want and intellectualize all you want, but until you actually have an experience of what you're trying to learn, then you internalize it and your body actually learns it, and you appreciate, oh, this is what they're really talking about. You feel it in your body. You have to have the experience of it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think human beings are, we're experience-based creatures, and all of our greatest knowledge and wisdom comes through discovery.
Right.
When you're a kid, you can sit there and listen to everyone tell you about don't do this, do that, da 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 da.
Right.
And you're never going to listen because you don't know what you don't know.
That's right.
Until you experience it, right? And your perspective is responsible for everything, for your way of being, and it's through discovery and experience that your perspective gets expanded.
Right, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. Wow, what you were just saying there about staying present reminded me of The Power of Now, the famous book Eckhart Tolle. I don't know if you've ever encountered that or read that, but I just wanted to throw that in as a reference. So I'll put that in the show notes too, just because that's a good summary for me that I got a lot out of. But you do have to live it, and experience it. Just drive it home and really to feel the value of what that concept can give to you.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing I liked about going through this course was that it just kind of, not to be too new agey or cliche,
mm-hmm.
This is just about real life,
yeah,
and how to get into your life, and there the amounts of things that we covered, it would take 5 podcasts to try and go
right.
through it.
Right.
I think mainly the main points is just to kind of bring it all together is, number one, to get in tune with your perspective,
mm-hmm.
and realize that your past and your experiences have shaped everything for the way that you see the world.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And the one determinant for what you say, think, and do, your
mm-hmm.
actions in your
mm-hmm.
life, is your perspective. And most of us are dragging past experiences into our perspective today.
Mm-hmm.
So we're still letting the past subconsciously control what we say, think, and do.
Right.
Which is why people and human beings so easily get stuck in cycles,
mm-hmm.
ways of being.
Right.
And we can't find our way out of it.
It's
because we're still operating with the same perspective, and we're we're making essentially the same decisions. And in reality, the only thing that can transform your reality objectively is action.
Right.
No thought will ever change your circumstances in reality.
Right. Oh, I love that. Maybe that will be the quote that I tweet out when we get this episode produced. Man, that is brilliant right there. Yeah, it's really a great reminder.
I mean, there is the world that's going on around us, and there's the world that's going on inside of our head. Most of us are living in the world inside of our head.
Right.
But that doesn't change our circumstances.
Right.
So this is a very action-based leadership program.
I see.
If you really want to make changes in your lives and the lives of others, it's going to require action.
Right.
Because that's the way that the only way that anything changes in objective reality. Right.
I love that. So how many? So it sounds like you did like a weekend thing here, and then maybe you did a longer experience. Was it like a 2-week or 3-week process?
Yeah. The first course was just like a 3-dayer. The second course was a 3-dayer. And then the leadership program was 6 months.
Oh, 6 months. So it's quite longer. Okay.
It was. And essentially by the time it was all said and done, it was kind of a total, basically a total, I came to Thailand and I thought that, giving myself a new external stimulus was going to cause a change from within. I thought that was going to be my transformation.
Okay.
Right. And what I realized is that no matter where you go, you're always taking one thing with you.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's yourself.
That's right.
So
bring that baggage with you, man.
Even after the glitz and glam of Thailand and a whole new world started to wear off a bit, I found myself in the same sort of mental circumstances that I'd been in before I left.
Right.
And really it was this program that I experienced the most transformation in.
Oh, really? That's interesting. Okay.
So, it was definitely unexpected that would happen.
Right.
But, the program essentially was just a kind of a deconstruction of my perspective. And just once you understand why you see things a certain way, then you can automatically not be subject to that controlling you anymore.
Right.
You can be conscious to make a decision to see things a different way or to take a different action, which will cause a different result in your life instead of the same actions, same results. Don't know how to get out of it. Same mess.
Right. So some things that might have frustrated you or made you angry before, you might see them differently and think like, oh, I don't need to get angry at that anymore because it has nothing to do with me or whatever, like
these two seemingly related events are actually not related at all.
Right.
The way that our brains, I think, compartmentalize, experience and memory is to sort of, give us a whereabouts or a knowledge to survive.
Right.
We don't really live in a world of survival, instinctual survival anymore.
Right.
So we, as much as knowledge can be beneficial for us in given circumstances and situations, sometimes it's good to step outside of that as well.
Right.
Because then, when you look at things around you as you already know this, I already know that that's going to be, I already know that I'm not that kind of a person. When you already know everything, then you stop exploring.
Right.
You stop learning new things.
Right.
And you stop discovering the possibilities that are around you at any given time and moment.
Right. Exactly.
You know too much.
Right. Well, I think, two things I'm thinking there is your first point, which is the major one is that no matter where you go or what you do, the real transformation, the real thing that has to happen is within yourself. The real growth has got to come from you internally. But traveling and putting yourself in these different situations can be a great interrupt or stimulus. Knock you out of your patterns, right? At least like scratch the surface of like, why did I think that way or whatever, to kind of maybe start opening yourself up, right?
I mean, most definitely anytime you're doing something new, you're going to expand yourself.
Yeah.
And, at the end of the day, I think that to kind of connect back with earlier, maybe that's sort of the, for human beings, it's in life, my take on it is that it's a continual process of expansion of who you are as a person and who you can be as a person. And that's very fundamentally tied in with that desire and drive to have new experiences.
I got you.
Right? It's a continual, until the day you die, you've got the opportunity to expand who you are, expand what you can be. and that's a great gift. Really.
Yeah, it is really. Wow. This has been awesome, man, talking to you. We got a few minutes left, but before we get out of here, I got a couple of questions I'd like to ask everybody that comes on the podcast, and one has to do with technology in terms of being over here, and especially people in the U.S. that are listening around the world or in Europe that maybe haven't experienced Asia or Bangkok in particular, I guess. How do you see Bangkok in terms of the U.S. and kind of the state of affairs with technology, and how you can kind of get around town? Because one of the things that blew me away when I came to Bangkok or Asia, and that's why I continue to come back because I have this kind of technology interest and engineering background, is how fast things are moving and how tech savvy Asia is, right? And Bangkok is compared to, other places, first world places that you're thinking maybe should be or are more advanced, but they're pretty advanced here. Like how do you see the world through that lens?
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't been over here, you wouldn't believe it.
Exactly.
I mean, you'll be like, what? Like they're modernized, right? Right. Step in step with the Western world.
Yeah.
Not that this represents, technologically savvy people, but Thailand logs on the most hours on social media on average out of any country in the world.
Is that right? I knew it was high because I just feel it when you're here.
Out of any country in the world.
Wow. So my social media folks out there, listen to that statistic. That's very interesting.
And I think, the fact that considering that, a decade or 20 years ago, essentially Thailand was still kind of in a developing, maybe a third, mid-second world kind of a state.
Right.
And so the technological advancements have hit them so hard and so fast all at once that it's sort of this maybe this kind of hyper addiction to it, when it hits you all at once, you go from not having anything at all to having it all at once.
Right.
And then you're you get totally consumed by it. Where in the States, it's happened a little bit more gradually.
Right.
My generation, we didn't have cell phones when we were younger. And,
right.
Then we kind of had the first computers, slow internet, kind of,
right.
We kind of eased into it. Mm-hmm. But here, they literally went from nothing to just boom.
Boom, right.
I've got a computer in my hands that I can, connect with anyone all over the world.
Right.
And so, and as far as Asia is concerned, I think a lot of technologists might agree that in a lot of sense, they are moving further and faster than the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. I think maybe not as much in the... there's obviously technology is still probably the greatest, innovative component of the United States. Mm-hmm. Right. But there seems to be such more of a cohesion, I think, over here in Asian countries.
Yeah.
An adoption rate.
Right.
That it's one technology gets adopted by everyone.
Right.
You don't have it doesn't seem like you have you just seem to have more of a cohesion.
Yeah, there's you're right. The innovation is still happening, let's say in Silicon Valley or, maybe a few spots in China or Japan or something. But in terms of the application and people embracing technology and figuring out interesting things to do with it and having it be a real value in their life, this is really instructive place to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You see how people are using it, what it's really doing for them because of the density of the population, maybe, or because of they didn't have a good wired infrastructure for years, let's say, or whatever, But now that the wireless 4G's happened, it's it's really impacting people in major ways, and they embrace it. They really do embrace it.
Yeah.
Majorly,
Majorly.
Especially the social media and the different apps that people use over here, a little bit different from the U.S. Everybody uses Facebook and such, but. What are the popular apps around here, like WhatsApp and there's other things that...
Yeah, they use Line, this messaging app called Line,
okay.
Which I still haven't figured out why it's so popular.
Yeah, it's popular here. It's not really in the U.S.
Simply a messaging app.
Yeah.
But over here, before I came over here, I was like, I'll just probably get rid of my Facebook account.
Right.
When you get over here, there's no way I can. It's all anybody uses.
Right.
So, and Instagram, just all the same sort of... Snapchat, all the same, technologies that people are consuming on a daily basis in the States.
Right, I gotcha. Cool.
Yeah, but there just seems to be a greater focus. I think, in the States, you've got so many different kinds of people from state to state, from city to city.
Right.
So many different
Right.
opinions. But in Thailand, or like, a country, they seem to be a fairly unified country.
Yeah.
So they're kind of all going in the same direction together.
Right.
So the adoption rates here are insane.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know.
So listen to that. Like, the business folks that are out there, or people that are looking to develop apps or new technology startups. Adoption rates can be very quick here. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
That's a good insight. So cool. All right, I got one more question for you.
Bet.
And you've been answering this question the whole podcast, it seems like, it's because you've had such an amazing experience, like the last couple of years of just dropping into Asia and never going back home, and then doing this leadership course. But going forward, if you can give people, maybe boil it down to like 1 or 2 tips or something that really is that you see that you're going to use going forward. How do you keep reinventing yourself and as you go forward, now that you've had this major growth spurt, let's say? But what have you learned through it, thinking like, what, I'll be able to lean on these things as I go forward when I need to reinvent myself again?
Yeah. This is going to be a bit contradictory, I suppose, to say, right? But, I really think that as far as yourself, who you are, inventing yourself, reinventing yourself, it's intuitive.
Okay.
There is no, general manual or script that you can read, and nothing that's going to apply across your whole life. Your experience and who you are as a person is solely your experience.
Right.
No other shared experience in the world like it. So as much as it seems that we need to seek out that sort of information elsewhere, I think there are a lot of good tips and sort of ideas out there. But when it comes down to inventing yourself or reinventing yourself, it's intuitive to you. And the more and more that you get in touch with who you are, what you're doing in your life, what it's doing for you, and the more you can take a look at those areas and sort of recreate, those instances in your life and I think, it doesn't mean you have to necessarily have a life-changing experience and move outside of your country and,
Right.
go full on like I did.
Right.
I think it's a matter of the life that you're living now and the circumstances that you're in now, you're not always in control of.
Right.
But you're in control of who you are in the life that you're living now. So, a lot of people out there, we're always thinking the future about, someday I'm going to have this, someday I'm going to be that, someday my life's going to be complete. Be that someday now, whatever that someday is for you.
Right.
That will really get you in touch with what your passion in life is. When you think about those dreams, think about why you have that dream. And create that someday today in your life. And I'm willing to bet that with that expanded idea of yourself, you'll start taking some different actions in your life. Right. And you actually might start creating objectively, manifesting actually through actions.
Right.
The life that you want and start, getting yourself in circles that you want to be in, or start opening yourself up to possibilities that inspire you. So whatever that someday is for you, really embody that today and explore that and see what opens up for you.
Right. Wow. I love the idea of to always remember yourself, that it's intuitive to you, in terms of kind of where you need to steer yourself going forward. It was really self-awareness and being in tune with yourself. I love that. Cool, man.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to continue today, that today is my someday, right? It's today.
Absolutely.
Right? So we'll continue to that later, because we might go to your buddy's house and play some music.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you bet.
All right, maybe we might do that. So,
yeah.
So we got to wrap this up right now. But Ryan, thanks for being on. If anybody wants to reach out to you and get in touch with you, do you want to hand out any handles or anything? Or it's up to you?
Definitely. Yep, most definitely. We can put some links in the description or whatever.
Okay. Well, you can hand them out now, or just put them in the show notes. It's up to you.
Probably the best way, just social media, Facebook.
Okay.
Ryan Roth Emry.
Okay. All right.
We can put a link to my Facebook, and I'm always welcome any conversations, any questions. I don't claim to be any sort of a guru by any means, but I'd love to meet new people and and shoot ideas off of other people and see what people think about things.
Right. Well, you're a reinvention guru, man. 'Cause you've been on the podcast now, so
I'm working on it. So it's in progress.
Everybody's a little bit farther than someone else out there in life, and everybody else can learn from someone too. So
most definitely.
So that's the way I think about it.
I learn from my kids that I teach every single day.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. All right, well, let's get out of here, Ryan. Thanks so much again.
You bet.
It was a joy. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Right. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast. If you want to hear more, join our mailing list at jimreinventionrevolution.com. See you next time, and remember, the revolution has just begun. So dig in, embrace the process of reinvention, and start realizing the success you've always dreamed of.